I used to think silence meant peace. Now, it just means control. The morning sun spills through the floor-to-ceiling windows of my apartment in Seattle, touching the rim of my coffee cup as steam curls like a whisper. My reflection in the glass looks calm. Silk blouse, neat bun, diamond rings still shining, but beneath that stillness, I can hear the echo of that one ruined day. My phone buzzes on the counter. One glance at the name flashing on the screen, Mom, and my stomach knots the way it used to when I was a little girl, waiting for approval that never came. I let it ring once, twice, then it stops. But the message follows. You'll want to see what your sister's wearing to your cousin's wedding. A low laugh escapes me, brittle at the edges. Even after all these years, she still knows where to press. I set the phone down and trace my thumb over the tiny chip in my mug, the same flaw I noticed the morning she tried to crash mine. Outside, the city hums with Friday noise, traffic, gulls, a siren in the distance. But inside, it's just me and the ghosts I've kept too neatly buried. My life looks perfect from every angle: executive office, picture-perfect marriage, calm composure. Yet one memory still burns like a watermark under polished glass. The day my mother asked me to cancel my wedding for my sister's feelings. 2 months before my wedding, I was standing in my parents' living room, holding a binder full of floral samples and menu cards that suddenly felt useless. My mother sat on the couch in her favorite beige sweater, the one she wore whenever she wanted to appear gentle, but her voice was anything but soft. "Emily, you need to think about your sister," she said, folding her arms like a verdict. "This wedding, it's too soon. Don't you think it's cruel?" Cruel. The word struck me harder than she realized. Across the room, my older sister, Rachel, stared at the floor. Her engagement had ended 3 weeks earlier. Her fiancé left, took his things, and vanished without a goodbye. Mom hadn't stopped crying since. Not for Rachel's heartbreak, but for the embarrassment it caused our family. I remember standing there, trying to find air in a room that smelled like overbrewed coffee and disappointment. "Mom," I said carefully, "my wedding date's been set for a year. People have flights booked, deposits paid. She's fragile right now." My mother's voice cracked like thunder. "How do you expect her to stand there watching you marry while her own life falls apart? Can't you just postpone?" Rachel finally looked up. Her eyes were swollen, her mascara faint. "It's okay, Mom," she whispered. "Em deserves to be happy." But the damage was done. Mom turned that look on me, that sharp, pitying stare, as if my happiness was an act of cruelty. I swallowed the lump in my throat. "I love her," I said, "but I'm not canceling my wedding." That night, I cried alone in my apartment, the city lights blurring through my tears. My fiancé, Daniel, tried to hold me, but the hurt was already planted too deep. The thought that my own mother could ask me to shrink so my sister could breathe, it hollowed me out. The next morning, I pulled out a small velvet box from my drawer. Inside was my grandmother's pendant, a simple gold heart etched with the word enough. She'd given it to me before she passed, whispering, "Never let someone else decide what joy you deserve." That day, I wore the pendant under my blouse like armor. I called the florist, confirmed every order, and made a quiet promise to myself. I would walk down that aisle, even if I had to do it without them. The wedding went on as planned, beautiful, intimate, and painfully incomplete. My father didn't show. My mother sent a message through a cousin. "We can't support this." Rachel didn't come either. I walked down the aisle with Daniel's hand steady in mine, but my heart trembled under the weight of absence. Still, I smiled for the cameras. I laughed when Daniel whispered jokes during our vows. I danced until my feet ached. Then, as the night faded into quiet, I made peace with a truth I hadn't wanted to face. My family had chosen their golden girl, and I wasn't her. In the months that followed, life became a strange kind of blank canvas. Daniel and I rented a small apartment on the outskirts of Seattle. I'd quit my marketing job weeks before the wedding, thinking I'd take time off to plan the honeymoon and start fresh afterward. Instead, I found myself staring at unpaid bills, searching job boards, and forcing myself to smile when friends asked how married life was. Daniel was my anchor, patient, grounded, endlessly kind. But he also believed in something I didn't yet see: me. When he introduced me to one of his colleagues, a woman named Lydia Grant, founder of a boutique branding agency, my life began to shift. Lydia was in her 50s, whip-smart, unapologetic, with red lipstick that always matched her nails. She looked at me across her cluttered desk and said, "You've got a voice people will listen to. You just need to stop asking for permission to use it." I started as her assistant, then copywriter, then client lead. Lydia became my mentor, my compass, and my mirror. She taught me that success wasn't loud, it was consistent. That grace could exist beside grit. Those early years were chaos. Late nights, coffee-fueled brainstorming sessions, rejection emails that stung more than I'd admit. I missed birthdays, holidays, and every family gathering I wasn't invited to anyway. I told myself I didn't care. Some days, I almost believed it. The turning point came 3 years later when Lydia retired and handed me her agency, not with a ceremony, but with a quiet nod. "You've earned it," she said. "Now build something that would make your grandmother proud." And I did. I rebranded the agency under my own name, Emily Carter Creative, and began signing clients that used to be out of reach. Fashion houses, eco-startups, tech innovators. My campaigns went viral. My team grew from 2 to 20. But even as success bloomed around me, I kept my roots hidden. Online, I was modest. I never posted office photos or awards. My family still thought I was doing freelance work. Sometimes, I'd scroll through Rachel's social media, endless photos of brunches, spa trips, her new relationship. Mom's comments were always glowing. I'd smile faintly, close the app, and return to work. I didn't need them to know. Or so I thought. Because one quiet afternoon, 5 years after my wedding, an email arrived with a subject line: "Family emergency." And in that single moment, the past I'd carefully built walls around came knocking again. The email came from Rachel. "Mom's not well. Please call me." I stared at the screen for a long moment, my pulse tightening. It had been nearly 6 years since I'd heard her voice, longer since I'd seen her face. I should have felt anger, maybe bitterness. But instead, all I felt was the quiet ache of unfinished business. When I finally called, her voice was fragile, threaded with guilt. "Emily, she's been asking for you," she said. "Mom's fine physically. It's more emotional. She lost her job, her savings. She won't admit it, but she needs help." Help. The irony wasn't lost on me. 2 days later, I found myself driving up the winding hill to my childhood home. The porch looked smaller now, the paint chipped, the rose bushes dry. Rachel met me at the door, same honey blonde hair, same perfect composure, but her eyes flickered with something I hadn't seen before. Humility, maybe. Inside, Mom was sitting by the window, wrapped in a shawl, her once proud posture softened. When she saw me, her lips parted in disbelief. "Emily," she whispered, "you came." I did. My voice was even, practiced. Rachel poured coffee into mismatched mugs. The air between us was thick with things unsaid. Finally, Mom spoke, her tone brittle. "I've missed you, sweetheart. I heard you're doing some kind of marketing thing." Some kind of marketing thing. The same way she used to dismiss my art projects in high school. I smiled faintly. Something like that. Rachel cleared her throat. "Mom and I were actually hoping we could talk about a project. Maybe you could help us." I looked between them. 2 women who had once watched me shatter and turned away. "A project?" Rachel nodded. "We're trying to open a small boutique. A family business. But we need branding, investors, that kind of thing. You've always been good with creative stuff, Em." For a second, I almost laughed. They didn't know. "Not really. Why don't you come by my office tomorrow?" I said softly. "We'll talk." The next morning, they arrived at Carter Creative Studios. I watched them step through the glass doors, eyes wide as they took in the minimalist lobby, the white marble floors, the framed campaign posters, the receptionist who greeted them with, "Good morning, Miss Carter." Rachel blinked. "Miss Carter," she echoed. I led them through the hall, the click of my heels the only sound. In my office, spacious, sunlit, lined with awards, They stood silent, trying to make sense of it all. Mom's gaze swept across the room, my name on the door, the skyline view, the shelf lined with industry trophies. "This is yours," she whispered. "Yes," I said simply. "Every inch." Rachel's voice cracked. "You own this." I met her eyes, steady and calm. "I built it. From nothing. After you both decided I didn't deserve a wedding or a family." For a long moment, no one spoke. Then Mom sank into the chair opposite my desk, her fingers trembling. "Emily, I didn't know." "No," I interrupted gently. "You didn't want to know." Tears welled in her eyes. "I thought I was protecting Rachel. I didn't realize I was losing you." Rachel's eyes filled too. "You were always the strong one, Em. I couldn't handle how easily life seemed to love you." I let their words hang in the air. For once, I didn't rush to comfort or forgive. I simply existed in the silence, whole, steady, and finally seen. When I finally spoke, my voice carried no anger, only truth. "I didn't need your approval to become who I am. But I did need this moment to remind you that I didn't vanish when you turned away." Outside, the Seattle rain began to fall, tapping gently against the glass. And for the first time in years, I felt lighter. I let the rain fill the silence as they both sat across from me, small against the sweep of glass and steel around them. The same women who once treated me like an afterthought now looked to me for help. "Emily," Mom started, her voice wavering. "I know I don't deserve your kindness after what I did. But your sister and I were struggling. We just need to start." I folded my hands, feeling the cool metal of my grandmother's pendant under my blouse, the word enough pressing softly against my skin. I'd carried it into every meeting, every hard decision, every moment I thought I wasn't capable. This was one of those moments. "I'm not against helping," I said. "But there have to be conditions." Rachel blinked. "Conditions?" I leaned back. "Yes. Because what you're asking for isn't just money. It's a chance to start again. And I won't invest in anything built on the same habits that broke us." Mom's eyes widened. "Habits?" I met her gaze steadily. "Control. Comparison. Pretending one daughter's worth is tied to the other's failure." She flinched. For once, she didn't defend herself. I turned to Rachel. "If we work together, you run the creative side. But you'll need to take actual training, business management, not just Instagram aesthetics. If I'm funding this, I need you to be serious about it." She nodded slowly, eyes glistening. "I can do that." Then I faced Mom. "And you're not the decision maker. Not anymore. You'll be an advisor only if Rachel and I agree. No guilt trips, no emotional leverage. If you can't respect that, I walk away." Her lips trembled. "Emily, I never realized how much I tried to control everything." "I know," I said softly. "That's why it ends here." For a long moment, no one spoke. The tension cracked, not from confrontation this time, but from release. I saw my mother's shoulders drop, her eyes wet but clear. Rachel reached for her hand, and for the first time, I didn't feel like an outsider looking in. "I don't want revenge," I added quietly. "I just want peace for all of us. But peace comes with boundaries." Rachel gave a shaky laugh. "You sound like Lydia." The name pulled a small smile from me. She taught me well. Mom wiped her eyes. "If we do this, I'll try to be better. For real this time." I nodded. "Then we'll start small. You'll both meet my team next week. We'll draft a plan together. No shortcuts." As they stood to leave, I walked them to the door. The storm outside had slowed to a mist, the kind that softened everything it touched. Rachel hugged me first, hesitant then tighter. Mom followed, her arms fragile but sincere. For the first time, I didn't feel the need to pull away. Maybe this was what power looked like, not dominance but balance. Not control but calm. And as they left my office, I realized something. Forgiveness wasn't a gift for them. It was. 6 months later, the boutique opened. We called it 3 Threads. Rachel chose the name because, she said with a nervous smile, that's what we are. Different strands, finally woven together. I'd helped design the logo myself. 3 gold lines intertwined into one circle. When I watched the sign go up that morning, sunlight glinting off the letters, I felt something shift deep inside me. The weight of years finally lifting. The launch wasn't grand, but it was real. Rachel managed the front end with a confidence I'd never seen in her before. Mom handled bookkeeping, humbler now, gentler. And I stayed mostly behind the scenes, consulting, guiding, but giving them room to grow. Sometimes, I'd catch Mom watching me, eyes soft with regret. One evening, as we were closing up, she touched my hand and whispered, "You know, I used to think strength was obedience. That's what my mother taught me. But you've shown me it's actually grace." It was the closest thing to an apology I'd ever get, and maybe all I needed. At home that night, I sat by the window of my apartment, the city glittering below. Daniel came up behind me, kissed the top of my head. "You look peaceful," he said. "I think I finally am," I murmured. I reached for the small gold pendant around my neck, the one my grandmother had given me all those years ago. I turned it over in my palm, tracing the tiny engraving. Enough. That word had carried me through everything: rejection, loneliness, hard work, and finally, triumph. It wasn't just a reminder to stop chasing approval. It was proof that I'd always been enough, even when they couldn't see it. The next morning, before heading to the boutique, I paused at the mirror. The same calm reflection stared back, older, wiser, still scarred, but shining in her own quiet way. I smiled, slipped on my heels, and whispered to my reflection. I didn't cancel my wedding. I canceled my need for their approval, and that was the real beginning. Outside, the morning sun broke through the clouds, spilling gold across the city. And as I stepped into the light, I knew this was the life I was always meant to live. Not as someone's lesser half, not as the forgotten daughter, but as the woman who finally stood tall in her own story.